Hi, everyone. Tony from Act Movies here, and today I'm joined by Nick Rekieta from Rekieta Law.
Hey, buddy, how's it going?
It's going great. Today we're going to talk about Halloween. As you all know, the new movie's coming out, or it is out by the time you watch this, and they've retconned the series again. They decided everything after the first movie is no longer canon. So I wanted to talk about like what would have realistically happened to Michael Myers after the first film. Like, what would his legal defense be? Is the new movie accurate with him just being in the mental asylum? I want it like a law expert. I have a lot of problems with this new movie, and this is one of them. So I'm hoping you're going to help me get to the bottom of them here.
We'll see what we can do.
Yeah. So let's start where this all begins. Michael murders his sister in 1963 at the age of 6. And the movie begins. His doctor is taking him in front of a court to make sure he never gets let out ever again, but it seems like he'll never be let out already. Can you explain why he's doing that at all?
I can only suppose.
Okay.
I can only suppose, but I would imagine that when he was 6 years old, they ruled him incompetent to stand trial as such a young child, probably incapable of determining that he was actually committing a crime or that he could manifest the requisite intent to murder someone. So they institutionalize him, and then 15 years go by, and without being able to know the specific statute, I would guess there's a mandatory review at that 15-year mark that says this person's been locked up for 15 years. We need to have just a review with testimony from an expert to determine if they should stay locked up or if they have been rehabilitated and can be reintegrated into society.
Okay. So that's what Loomis is doing. And most likely, if he made it to court, they would clearly put him away forever because he's not talking. He's barely moving. They were going to pump him full. Is it legal for a doctor to pump his patient full of Thorazine so he couldn't, even if he wanted to defend himself or talk, he physically couldn't? It's a little shady to me, but
it seemed
doctor.
It seems shady. It's the 70s, so you never know. But my guess would be that Michael is not there to testify. He's there to be present. But, you know, if the court would want to get some sort of testimony from him, I think they would probably take a written statement, maybe under the supervision of another doctor than his own or something like that. But it's the 70s, so maybe they just let you pump him full of Thorazine and give it a whirl.
Okay, so Michael never makes to that court, whatever it was. Also, could Loomis have chosen any other fucking night to take him to? Like, oh yeah, the anniversary of his first murder. That's a good time to do this. Like, and it's during a rainstorm. Couldn't he just be like, hey, can we move this to next week or Thanksgiving or a holiday where he didn't butcher his sister would be nice?
Yeah, and actually, thinking back on that it's the 15-year anniversary of it. That means that the process from when he was 6 happened so fast that it's actually a little unreasonable. Because he wouldn't have gone from murder to institution on the day of the murder, right? Like that wouldn't have happened that way. There would have been a longer, more involved process to try and figure out what was going on.
And as we'll get to later on, this is the first example of no one actually witnessed Michael murdering his sister. And there was another man there earlier that night who apparently had sex within the span of 30 seconds and was back and fully clothed, which always bothered me. That always bothered me. How did he do that so fast? So I would imagine there would have been like a little bit more research into that, like what was going on there. But it seems like right away they knew it was Michael.
Well, he was holding a knife.
Who knows? Maybe he found that knife, as we'll get to later on with someone else. All right, so 1978 happens, and I have a list of his crimes here.
Yeah, and it's significant.
Yeah. Right away it seems like someone like let the insane people out on accident or something. So we're gonna say he breaks out. He definitely left the grounds of the insane asylum, which I guess he's not allowed to do. And during that, he attacks a nurse and then steals a car that's owned by the state.
Right. Yeah. He was definitely what I would consider assaulting the nurse.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a battery, but he's intending to cause fear.
Now, what is the battery again?
So under common law, not under specific statute, most of the criminal laws will combine them, but the common law definition of assault would be some sort of intent to cause fear or apprehension in someone. And then the moment you cause a touch to someone that is unwanted, it transitions to a battery. Okay. So when he's slapping his hand on the window, which, by the way, an open palm slap that shatters a car window is about as manly of a thing as I can think of.
Well, Nick, if I don't know what you're watching, you were watching this on Blu-ray or DVD or?
It was Amazon Prime.
Okay. If you watch that scene again, brighten the screen up a little bit, you'll see he has a wrench taped to his hand in order to break that screen. Like it's so like the movie's so dark that you can't see it, but like it's one of those things once you see it, you're like, oh well, I'll never unsee it.
Yeah, so well that's ingenuity.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Let's say that wasn't a special effect, and for some reason Michael found a wrench next to the car and used it for that exact second. Does that add like assault with would that become assault with a weapon? Or?
I don't think it would become assault with a weapon, but it would kind of change the calculus on his escape. As a preview for all of this, I think the first part of the defense is arguing that Michael is not competent to stand trial. He is not capable of making right and wrong decisions. Yeah. So he can't manifest the intent to do any of this. Okay. However, if he's noodling through, I need to put a wrench in my hand to break a car window, that starts to show that he's got some sort of capability to have cause and effect and to problem solve. So that's weighing against Michael at this point.
Okay. So after he steals the car, he heads toward Haddonfield. Remember, this version of Michael Myers is not like immortal or, inhuman or whatever. But for some reason, he knows how to drive a car and knows exactly how to get back to his home that he hasn't seen in 15 years.
Well, I think maybe someone at the institution, Loomis says, he says, one of you probably taught him how to drive. And they probably did. There was probably some sort of reintegration program.
He says that. And you know what? Loomis probably has other patients. Like, probably doesn't watch Michael all day long. But he says, like, all he ever does is sit in a room and stare at a wall. So I don't know.
I don't know. I think the hippie state of Illinois, very, very progressive, I think, maybe.
But and then Michael goes from being catatonic, not wanting to do anything, but then gets excited about learning how to drive.
You put a man in a car, his whole world changes.
Okay. So on his way to Haddonfield, he murders a mechanic and takes his clothes. So that's clearly murder. And I'm guessing theft. Is there a special word for stealing from someone you murdered?
No, well,
I don't know.
I don't think so. It would be robbery if the guy, maybe he killed him maybe he got him naked first and then killed him.
Yeah, but there's no blood or anything on that jumpsuit. Like, I don't even know if Michael killed him.
Well, that guy may have had car trouble, died from fumes inside the car. And Michael just happened upon him and said, well, he doesn't need these clothes anymore. I've got to get out of these dirty, very wet and uncomfortable insane asylum robes. So he found a much more suitable mechanic's jumpsuit.
The mechanic did have blood on his chest, though, so I don't know.
I mean, that could have been from Michael's hand, though, as he was removing the clothes.
That's true. But this is the first part. This is the second instance where there was not a witness to this. Loomis is there. He's at the scene of the crime, but he never finds the body, which, by the way, was John Carpenter in a cameo. That's his only cameo. His second cameo in the movie is some fucking cigar smoke blows in front of a girl's face because he was just smoking on set because it was 1978 and they didn't realize how popular this movie would be and he didn't care. It's kind of like when you watch the first Star Wars and Darth Vader's helmet's like all crooked because no one gave a shit. They were like, no one's going to see this.
Yeah. We're outside of any sort of popular genre here.
Yeah. So moving on from that, the timeline gets a little bit confusing because he apparently breaks into a store.
Yeah, the hardware store.
some knives, and a mask. And apparently it's the longest alarm ever because we see him earlier that morning wearing the mask, and they must have just never turned this alarm off all day long.
Yeah, and what I mean, you've got the mask hanging behind you.
Yeah.
What hardware store sells this mask? Or I guess it wasn't technically a hardware store.
I don't know. You know what? I wasn't alive in the 70s. I missed it. I'm sorry.
It's just the general store.
Yeah,
that's
just like they had a bunch of shit there. I don't know.
So what's interesting to me is if that mask is like a Halloween costume mask, because that's presumably what he's got.
Yeah.
We don't see that mask anywhere else in the show. No one else has decided to buy this particular costume.
Yes. I mean, it's still Halloween 2, but that's not canon, so we're ignoring that.
Right.
But yeah, no one else wears it, which is weird. It's a weird mask for him to pick. It's William Shatner, which will ruin Halloween for you forever when you find that out. You'll never not see William Shatner in it. But yeah, so I guess that's breaking and entering, and then theft again. So he's just adding to the list here.
Yeah, it would be burglary.
Okay.
Yeah, you burgle when someone is not around.
Gotcha.
It's robbery when someone is there.
Gotcha.
So yeah, he has burgled the store.
Yeah. All right. So the next thing he does is he trespasses and squats inside his old house, which is owned by Strode Realty.
Right.
It's not his house anymore. His family has nothing to do with it.
He presumably had to cause some sort of property damage to get into the house, although maybe he just found the key.
Well, no. She's leaving the key, and he's already...
Oh, yeah, he's already inside.
Yeah. So he definitely broke in. While he's there, they find out that he murders some kind of animal, it's never clear, and left the carcass there, so that's not nice. That's going to be hard to sell the house. Is there a law against killing an animal and eating it?
It depends on the animal.
Property.
It depends on the animal, and it depends on the method of killing. If he caused like undue amounts of harm to the animal, like more than was necessary to affect the kill, then it could be a crime. Cruelty to animals.
Okay. Okay. So here's the thing I want to know. He stalks people in this movie, and he's clearly stalking with the intent to like cause harm to Tommy Doyle, Laurie Strode, and Annie.
Right.
Ignore the part where they're just walking all together. He mostly goes after Annie, Laurie, and Tommy. Later on, he stalks Linda and Bob when they're inside the house, but they're kind of breaking and entering anyway, so don't.
Yeah. And the stalking thing, to clarify for people, stalking is not just like being somewhere, following someone around.
Yeah.
Stalking is an action that is done with the intent to cause fear or apprehension in someone else. So you and he knows, right? Like when he's staring at Laurie, most of the time is who he's really focused on. He's doing that to cause some fear for her. For Tommy, I assume you mean the part where he's like driving along next to him at the schoolyard. I don't know if that would rise to stalking because he doesn't make his presence actually known to Tommy.
The other kid bumps into him. That's right.
Yeah, the other kid bumps into him, and he just kind of lets that kid go, and he does follow Tommy, which I think it could. It doesn't matter if the person actually has the fear or apprehension. You have to just show the intent to cause it.
Okay.
But it's hard to know for sure if he actually intended to cause Tommy fear or apprehension, or if he was just scoping him out. And there's no real explanation as to why he's scoping out Tommy Doyle at that part of the movie.
I think it's just because he knows Laurie is babysitting him. And remember, before the whole family or the ancient druid curse, yes, that's a thing that happened in this sequel. Before all that shit, the idea is like Michael, for whatever reason, became obsessed with his like murder of his sister, and he wanted to recreate it. And also,
well, who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Yeah. And also, he wanted to make Halloween decorations out of people's corpses because it's Halloween. So I guess he was just focusing on Tommy because he knew like Laurie would end up, with him again. I'm not sure. So where are we at now?
We're at the trespass on the lawn.
Yeah, he trespasses on someone's lawn. That's also the scene where John Carpenter's cigar smoke just blows in front of Annie's face. He trespasses on a lot of people's like property during this whole movie. Sometimes he breaks in or like home invades or whatever, but a lot of times he's just hanging out on people's lawns, staring into their windows. So,
Yeah,
at what point does it become a crime?
So just being on someone's front lawn that is not fenced in is probably not a trespass until someone asks you to leave.
Okay.
When you're on like the sidewalk or approaching a door or just in general like on a lawn, you're probably what's called a licensee at that point, which means it's basically the right to enter a property that's given to anybody like a door-to-door salesman or something. Mm-hmm. So a licensee can come up to your front door. They might be able to walk across your front lawn just because it's by a sidewalk. Okay. But the closer you get to like a window or going away from the front door area, okay. The farther you go back towards the back of a house or into a fenced-in area, that just pushes towards that trespass.
Okay. And speaking of trespass, he apparently, I don't know when he had time to do this or how he knew where his sister was buried. I doubt he went to the fucking funeral because that would have been very awkward. But he makes it to the cemetery and for some reason is able to find his goddamn sister more than the guy who was in charge of the cemetery and steals a tombstone. We're not even going to get into how the fuck he lifted up a tombstone, maybe with the rope that he got from the store, but that's really heavy. He
did one-hand Bob, though. So he's pretty burly in his catatonic state of sitting there.
He one-hand bobbed and then put a knife through him so hard that it somehow made the knife longer than it actually was and stuck him into the door. God, I love this movie. It's my favorite horror movie, but there is some stuff where you got to turn your brain off. So anyway, he stole a tombstone from the cemetery. It's his sister. I don't know if that lessens the amount of crime it is.
No, it's definitely a crime to steal the gravestone. There may be another crime. It'd just be hard to find this in 1978 in the law, but there may be another crime for like defiling a grave site.
Okay.
I know there would be a crime for defiling a body, like if he dug up his sister's corpse or whatever. But there may be a separate crime for just defiling the site outside of taking the stone.
Okay.
But
again, you know what? He spends one day out of the asylum. He's just going for it.
You know, he's an efficient worker.
I'm surprised he didn't like sell drugs and shit. Like, just do all the crimes. Like, he would have to know what drugs like are and how to market it to people.
Well, they probably taught him that while he was learning how to drive.
I would have loved like a scene where they're like, yeah, Michael Myers spotted selling drugs, and Loomis is like, someone probably taught him how to sell drugs. That was a weird thing to teach him. All right. We already talked about the killing the animal inside the Myers house.
Yep.
We talked about trespassing. Well, the Wallace house and the Doyle house, he definitely like gets into. He like I guess it's home invasion. I don't know if he actually breaks anything to get into it.
Yeah. So like I said, when the people aren't home, it would be burglary. If they are home, it's a robbery. Even if I believe it's a robbery, even if he doesn't steal anything.
Oh, okay.
But if they're home when it happens, it's robbery.
Now, before we get to the murder, like let's talk about Linda and Bob, because they kind of went into the house. The owners of the house have no idea who they are. They don't know that they're there. They don't have permission to be there. The babysitter invited them, but she doesn't have permission to let them in. So killing them inside the house, it's still murder. It's obviously murder.
You still can't kill someone because Michael doesn't have a right to be there either.
But could you basically say like, oh, Michael's just being a good guy and trying to get these people out?
I think that's a defense you might want to try. But when Linda and Bob are driving there, when they're getting there, Linda runs down the plan with Bob.
Yeah.
And they say, we're going to go in. Don't they say they're going to distract the little girl?
Oh, they make like a weird, like pedophile joke. It was weird. He's like, oh, all right, I rip your clothes off. You rip my clothes off. And then we rip Lindsay's clothes off. Who's the little girl?
Did they say Lindsay? Or did he say Annie? That's horrifying.
Annie would have made more sense. Again, I don't know if that's just a mistake that made it into the movie or if it was just he was a weirdo. I don't know.
Maybe James Gunn wrote his lines. But
this first role.
So what I'm wondering though is if maybe the Linda does know the little girl or the family, because they know that she knows that she wants to distract Lindsay to get Bob upstairs.
Well, Annie invited them over because Annie was going to pick up a boyfriend and bring him back too.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming the Wallaces don't want anyone other than the babysitter in their house. So.
Yeah, you could just have an orgy party while we're gone. It's fine. It's cool.
It is the 70s, so who knows?
Our daughter will just stay downstairs and watch TV while you do that. Just turn the volume up, please.
By the way, like, this movie is supposed to take place in like the Midwest, even though it's very clearly California. Dude, you're from the Midwest, right?
Yeah, I'm in Minnesota.
Okay,
it should be cold.
Okay, well, yeah, and there should be way less palm trees. And the school shouldn't be separate buildings. They should probably be inside one big building. One more thing I want to ask, because this always bothered me about the movie. Do parents in the Midwest just fuck off and go to parties on Halloween and let their kids do whatever? Like, what's going on here? Why are so many parents away?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
And then the other good question is like, so I could see parents doing that, but like setting them up with a high school babysitter as opposed to, no, you go out and go trick-or-treating with like your friends and their parents or something. That seems like what I would do. Or, I mean, since it's, let's see, I'm born in 81. Mm-hmm. And so the earliest I would have gone trick-or-treating, and this is down in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I went trick-or-treating always with my parents.
Yeah.
But maybe when you get to like 10 or 11 years old, you could go out on your own or with just a group of friends.
Yeah, a group of friends is what I was allowed to do.
Yeah.
Until I was like 11, 12, then it was like, whatever.
Right. But but only like in a, some sort of familiar area. But yeah, these parents are like the meanest, cruelest parents. No, you're not going out trick-or-treating on Halloween. Actually, we're going to ruin both your night and the high school chicks' night. And we're going to party somewhere.
It even gets worse because then, like, I know we're not supposed to talk about the sequels, but I want to bring this up. In Halloween 2, they're like, we can't get a hold of Laurie's parents. They went to a party or something. And then even Halloween 1963, Michael's parents, they're just out somewhere.
Yeah, they're just gone.
Haddonfield, do they have like a fucking? I have no idea. Swinger party, one big swinger party that they all go to. That's
the only party good enough, right? Yeah. Like to get all the parents there and to screw all of the children.
Yeah,
out of Halloween. So.
Oh my god! All right, where are we at here? So Michael enters Annie's vehicle. Without her permission, obviously, because she has no idea he's in there.
And then you left out the criminal amount of heavy breathing that he had to do to fog that bad boy up.
Yeah. So he gets in her car. He doesn't break in. I guess it was unlocked, and then he locked it, and then waited for her to get her keys, and then unlocked it. It's a little convoluted there. It leads to a cool scene, but where she opens up the car without the keys after making a point. But
right.
So he entered her car without her permission. I'm assuming that's a crime.
That's got to be it's a trespass to. It's probably called a trespass to chattels.
Okay.
Which
that's really funny.
It's a trespass to something that isn't real property. Like if you went on someone's laptop, for example, without their permission, that would probably be like a trespass to chattels.
Okay.
Type situation. It's kind of weird, but
okay. And of course, he murders her in the car.
Right.
Murder, but again, no witnesses.
Nobody saw it.
Actually, no, because Tommy sees him carrying the body, but he has no idea someone was murdered.
And I'm not convinced that Tommy is capable of recognizing that he is not Paul, because at that point,
true.
And two, positively identifying Michael. It's far away. It's dark. Also, Tommy's a kid, and kids are dumb.
Also, you've never seen Michael before, and also Michael is wearing a mask.
Right. Could have been anybody. There could have been multiple Michaels.
That's true.
Maybe he's working with another crazy.
The original Michael could have just, now because his car makes it into town. I was going to say maybe the original Michael just drives away.
Maybe the original Michael is the dead mechanic.
That's true.
And the mechanic was like, I'm going to frame this on the dead crazy guy, and I'm going to get away with it all.
All right. So then Michael murders Linda and Bob, and in doing so, he causes damage to the Wallaces' property. You know, he puts a knife through their door. And then he puts he uses their bodies for decoration. So I'm assuming blood and viscera is just getting everywhere.
That would be some level of destruction of property.
Yes.
But maybe only like third or fourth degree.
All right. I feel like if I was a lawyer, I'd try to get the murders of Linda and Bob out. Be like, you know what? Who knows what shady stuff they were up to? They're not supposed to be there. They're having sex in people's beds, which is weird.
Yeah, and
like the worst place, like, oh, we're here. Let's have sex in the master bedroom of the house we're not allowed to be in.
Right. Well, I think, well, we'll see. I've got my master plan in.
Okay. All right. I did that. And then finally we get the stuff that's actually, you know, seen by people. We have a survivor finally. Michael stabs Laurie in the shoulder, and then he breaks into the Doyle's house. Damages the Doyle's property. He breaks that really flimsy door that he probably could have just ripped right off the. If he can lift, you know, if he can lift a fucking tombstone out of the ground, he probably could have just ripped that door right off.
Yeah, when he
closet just like that, and I can punch a hole through it.
And he punches through the other door first to unlock it.
So he breaks two doors. Oh wait, no, the other door was in the Wallace house, but that just adds to the list of things he's doing.
Right.
Laurie has to break the Wallace's door to get out, but I'm sure that's forgiven. And then, you know, he strangles Laurie Strode. He clearly has intent to kill her. He comes at her with a knife and misses.
Yeah, he hits her shoulder.
Yeah.
He does the cut on her arm, which has just a trickle of blood.
Yeah.
So the knife that's a weird thing because once she sticks the knitting needle in his neck, she acts like she has lost all of the blood. Yeah. And she like passes out on the couch for a minute.
She also fell off a balcony down the stairs.
Well, I mean, I guess.
She's limping, and she also had to run across the street.
If we're keeping score, but I think this all might be a ruse by Laurie. I don't trust her at all.
Side note, away from Michael. The fucking guy that she knocks on the house and then he turns on the light and then just turns it off and leaves her alone.
Yeah.
In any kind of trouble for that?
I would say probably not. Yeah. You don't have a duty to help people.
Okay. There's no Good Samaritan law or whatever?
Well, the Good Samaritan law would protect you if you tried to help someone but ended up causing them harm.
Oh, okay.
So there's no duty to protect outside of like very specific people. And even then it's really limited. But like if you're a cardiologist and someone is having a heart attack and you're like, yeah, I'm a cardiologist, but screw that guy. Maybe then they could impose liability. But even then would be a little bit of a stretch. It's really hard in America to force someone to help someone else.
Okay.
Plus, it's Halloween, so his excuse would be, look, this is just a stupid high school prank to me.
Yeah. All right. So finally, again, Laurie, there's three witnesses. The kids see her being attacked. And of course, Michael's doctor comes in, shoots Michael several times. Laurie did. So let's talk about it, because I don't know if you can use this in your defense, but Laurie, like, as we mentioned before, stabbed him in the neck and the heart at this point.
And she poked him in the eye with the coat hanger.
Poked his eye, which apparently the new movie, he has a missing eyeball, which is kind of cool. All the other movies, in 2, his eyes are shot out and then they just grow back. It's weird.
He's very durable.
Work in, like, oh, maybe Michael's defending himself at that point, even though he's clearly attacking her.
So if you're making the defense, let's talk real quick about how you first approach this.
All right. One more note before that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I just thought of something else. Loomis shoots him once. When Loomis goes in the room, Michael's just standing still. He's not trying to fight him or anything. And Loomis shoots him 6 more times till he falls out the window.
Right.
So now go on to your defense. And then the last crime of the movie, he flees the scene of a crime. So,
you left out a crime of cinema, and that's where they drive across this not very big town. and it transitions from full daylight to pitch black.
Oh yeah,
as the two girls are going to babysit.
Look, you just have to assume that in that time period, there's time missing there. I mean, good movies do that, bad movies do that. All movies do the day.
Well,
some movies do it multiple times within the same scene, which is real distracting.
So we're assuming, that Michael is arrested.
Yeah. So here's your if you were the lawyer or just anyone, here's the person you get. He's accused of murdering a lot of people. He has a history of murder. He was going to be sent away for like ever. He's currently, shot, stabbed. It's something must have happened to his back falling out of that window, even though he got up pretty fast. He probably didn't make it far. So he's probably not even like conscious for a while. He's definitely lost a lot of blood. And also he doesn't talk, and now he can't talk. So you can't even really discuss things with him. And he was catatonic most of the time, except for maybe his secret driver lessons. We don't know what he was like during that.
Right.
So that's your person that you have to defend.
So immediately I think that the cop has probably screwed up something in this arrest.
Okay.
And the reason I think so is because when when his daughter and her friend come up and they've been smoking weed within 30 seconds of him being at the car, he doesn't smell or even blink that they were clearly using marijuana. And I have talked to numerous cops, and they will tell you they can smell weed from pretty much the next state if you let them answer. So
my dad worked in narcotics as a cop, so yeah, he's told me stories.
Yeah, I immediately distrust this sheriff from doing his job.
Okay.
Next, we have Dr. Loomis.
Yeah.
So Dr. Loomis has purportedly given care to Michael for the past 15 years. Michael has not improved in any appreciable way that we can tell. He's largely catatonic, claims Dr. Loomis, although he's clearly not. I mean, he has some sort of motivation to get up, to move around. He's ambulatory, we'll say. So I'm starting to distrust Dr. Loomis's diagnosis of Michael. Next, when Dr. Loomis goes to the town of Haddonfield, he is prepared with a gun to shoot his own patient.
Shit, this is in Halloween 2, which doesn't count. Oh, no, he mentions in Halloween 1. He has a license for the gun. So.
Yep, and that's good because he's in Illinois. But him having the license for the gun, having shot his patient not only in the face, but then shooting him, or I guess it doesn't say it's in the face, but it kind of looks like it because he peeks his head out for that first shot.
Yeah. I'm not sure where he hits him the first time. I'm assuming it's all body shots. So
yeah, we have to assume that. But so he tags him, and then he hits him 6 more times. He's been talking about intentionally working to keep him locked up. I think Dr. Loomis may not be the most reliable person to assess Michael's stability or ability or competence.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing about that. Someone should really call into question, like, hey, your patient here, he only ever murdered one person as a child and has done nothing for 15 years. Why are you so fixated on this kid? Did Loomis do something to the kid that he doesn't want getting out? I don't know. I would start poking holes in there, but like, why is Loomis so worried about this kid who murdered one person and then did literally nothing afterwards?
And how do we know that Loomis wasn't the thing that the kid's trying to get away from, that Michael's trying to escape? The entire time, Loomis is on Michael's tail. So Michael, if he's conscious, I mean, Loomis says no, but he also says pump him full of Thorazine, so we wouldn't know how conscious Michael would be.
That's true.
So you've got the nurse who can testify to the entire conversation in the car with Loomis leading up to the place. He's clearly prejudiced against Michael. He shows up. Michael knows he's coming on this date if he's aware of time, and is trying to escape Loomis.
Okay.
That's obviously Michael's intent. He's not going to Haddonfield to kill anybody. No, he's trying to escape Loomis. So
pretty good defense.
Michael goes to the only place that he knows, which is Haddonfield. He goes to try and find his parents, talk about this doctor who's been causing him harm and trying to pin this act on him from when he was a child, not letting him rehabilitate. This is where I'm going with this.
Okay.
I'm pinning this thing on Loomis.
Yeah.
Loomis is new to Haddonfield. He has an easy scapegoat. He tells everybody on Earth that Michael is coming to kill everyone, but Michael isn't witness doing any of the crimes. The sheriff has no reason to believe that Dr. Loomis isn't equally a suspect in all of this.
Also, his initial murder was of a family member, so who knows if he has any vendetta with anyone else.
Right.
Her boyfriend, or he didn't try to murder his parents. Maybe he just had one issue with her.
Right. And I think we could mainly argue that he just had no capability as a 6-year-old to know that putting a knife in his sister would cause her death. And there's actually a lot of law about children's ability to know the reality of the consequences, because you're talking cartoons in the 70s.
Yes.
You stick a knife in someone, they don't die. The shows that these kids are watching don't have that cause and effect, and death is not something that kids really comprehend until they're a little bit older, typically speaking. So you can make the argument that Michael may have killed his sister, but didn't intend to, because he was just recreating some sort of scene. So then to have Loomis come in and for 15 years try and keep this kid away. I mean, Loomis doesn't seem like he's the right person to give care to Michael in the first place. And then now he's got a perfect scapegoat with a story that doesn't make sense. Michael's going to come back to town and kill everybody. Why, Loomis, would he do this?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just stated over and over that death is coming, but he doesn't know why. The only person who seems to know people are going to die is Loomis. And then when he shows up, people start dying.
Yeah.
So if I'm running Michael's defense, I'm posing alternative theories, because what your job is to do is to raise reasonable doubt. So the first you got to find some sort of plausible other story. I think you blame Loomis. I think the next person you start blaming is Lori.
Okay.
We know that her friends are rude to her. She's an outcast. She's not socially accepted. She's a bookworm. And then while she is babysitting the boy, her friend sloughs off the girl on her and to go presumably have fun after ridiculing her, after setting her up with a boy as a quote unquote prank. All of these things happen. I think Lori snaps. She grabs a knife. She goes over, kills Linda and Bob when she can't find Annie.
The only issue with that,
she kills Annie first.
Yeah. The only issue with that is that the kids are there with her as the murders are taking place.
Yeah, but do we have any timeline on these murders with witnesses? We don't know when these people die specifically.
That's a good question. And
I don't know. I don't have much confidence in this. Certainly not in the Haddonfield Police Department to accurately.
They're so terrible. Oh,
right. God. They're not accurately pegging time of death on asphyxiation in the car.
Yeah.
Technically, we would see some bruising, I would guess, on Annie's neck. You don't get to crush someone's throat and kill them without leaving some sort of mark. Yeah. But that could certainly have been Lori in some sort of rage. The kid's been watching the TV. You know, you mentioned that the kids are there with her, but they're watching TV, and she's actually in the other room carving a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah,
and they kind of
zoned out, especially.
Yeah, they kind of
Lindsay is zoned out like crazy throughout the movie.
Yeah, she's terrible. She's the kid you never want to put like in front of a TV because it might actually be causing her damage. Because all that stuff, all sorts of stuff's going on. She's just like, yeah, whatever. It's cool. So I really, I think you got to start with the competency thing. I mean, if he's escaped from a mental institution, he's not competent to stand trial. Yeah.
And so did I mention, I think the institution should be kind of responsible too.
The institution's got an issue.
Yeah, that's a big fuck up. That's one of the worst fuck ups you could ever have.
How can we make this go wrong? Oh, this would be the worst possible way. We're just going to let all of the patients at the asylum just roam about, and even ignoring the fact that Michael escapes. They could have easily been injured. They could have gotten hypothermia. This is October in Illinois, and it's raining. I mean, it's got to be 50 degrees
Yeah.
or colder outside. We know that Loomis is wearing a jacket. No one else seems to, but
it's kind of weird because those palm trees are just looking so healthy. You wouldn't
yeah.
think they would in
And
Illinois in October.
Lori's walking around in just a button-up shirt and underwear. She's got the leg warmers, so she might be a little toasty, but she doesn't seem uncomfortable in the temperatures. But no, I think you try and build a plausible alternative story, and the main things you've got no witnesses to any of the murders.
Yes.
The witnesses that you do have are kids who are traumatized because they're scared. I think you could make a case that Michael is fleeing Dr. Loomis because he's breaking into the house. I mean, if we switch Michael with Lori running from Michael, and she were to break into a house, we would hold no fault on her for doing that.
Yeah.
So if Michael is actually running away from Dr. Loomis, who's following him around with a gun, I mean, Dr. Loomis has followed this man 150 miles to Haddonfield with a gun.
Here's another thing. We don't no one knows what happened in that house when Lori went and Michael attacked her. Who's to say she didn't attack Michael, who was just, hanging out there? He's a crazy person. He doesn't know what's going on. And then him stabbing and whatnot is just him defending his life because, he doesn't think like a normal person does. He knows how to kill.
Right. And then the other thing you do, so you've got lots of instances of him staring. We call it stalking. And it could be if he was able to manifest the intent for stalking. But if he's just severely delayed, him standing and staring at normal people after being institutionalized for 15 years might not be that weird. And if he's just found standing around and staring at people, maybe he doesn't have the social awareness to not walk into a house. Yeah. So he walks into the house where Lori is busy killing Linda and Bob and Annie. And then she attacks him because he's just a weirdo who's walking around staring at people. So she goes after him because he's a potential witness. And that's one theory. And again, the Dr. Loomis chasing him. Dr. Loomis is a weird character in this. He seems to be heavily prejudiced against Michael, despite
someone who just killed one person as a child and has done nothing
as a very young child, and didn't seem to have any knowledge of what he was doing. I mean, he wasn't laughing, he wasn't like rolling in the blood or anything.
I don't know if you ever heard this theory. It kind of doesn't work, but Sam Loomis was the name of a character in Psycho, the Marion Crane's sister's like boyfriend or love interest or whatever.
Oh, okay.
People who finds Norman Bates at the end with the dress as his mother and whatnot. So there's a theory that that Sam Loomis was so traumatized by this murder that he actually became a psychologist to understand murderers better, and eventually became Michael's doctor. What that theory leaves out is that he must have went to fucking England and became British in that time. But say he is the same Sam Loomis, he's probably carrying over different emotions from Norman Bates.
And there's interesting questions about the prejudices and biases of the psychologist. If he underwent some sort of severe trauma in the past and is prejudiced against people who stab other people, he might have seen a young Norman Bates in Michael. Michael could have been damaged by the state here. I think actually, that's what we really need to get into.
In the we'll count this as canon because it's technically the first movie, but the TV version of Halloween, they added scenes because they had to cut out a lot of the gore, but they had to fill the time. So there's actually a scene where like Michael's like in like a hospital room with Loomis is in the room with Michael. I forget if he's older or younger, and he says something like, "You've probably tricked them, didn't you? I know you're evil." He's like yelling at Michael.
You fooled them, haven't you, Michael? But not me.
So yeah, you're right. I think maybe Loomis really took a kid. We don't know what that kid's home life was like, by the way.
Yeah,
what led him to murder, but Loomis did not help whatsoever.
No, I mean, when you've got statements like, "You've got something that isn't even remotely human," You can't. This is an unreliable doctor. He's compromised.
And this isn't like the remake, Michael, which the remake is awful. But at least in that one, Michael kills several people as a kid, and he's killing people in the asylum. Like the Loomis in that movie would have more of an argument. The Loomis in this movie, he has this unhealthy obsession with this guy. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I'm defending Michael, and we have some extra facts because we watched a movie.
Yeah.
But based on what people would be able to talk about, the only witnesses to Michael being terrifying are Dr. Loomis's experiences in the hospital and then walking in and shooting Michael, which I think might compromise him a little bit. Mm-hmm. We've got Lori, who, I just don't trust Lori that much in general.
The only thing with Lori, the one murder you can't really pin on her is the mechanic.
But we
even found that body, by the way. Who knows?
Right. We have, like, Loomis didn't see the body. We've no indication. There's no way you can prove that Michael killed that guy unless there's some sort of fingerprint evidence on him or something like that.
I got to watch the trailer for the new movie. I wonder, because they mentioned how many people he killed, and I wonder if the mechanic is included in that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be hard to, it'd be hard to peg that on him. There's no witnesses.
Other than the fact
that he's got the suit.
Yeah,
he's got the suit.
The only other evidence, his robe is there, the matchbook, which actually Loomis takes the matchbook that the had and pockets it. Right. So he's just stealing from the scene of a crime, which is helping your case out a lot more.
I don't trust Loomis at all. I think Loomis might be the killer.
I think we got a good case here. But this still leads to, like, what happens to Michael. Say he is found innocent. Is it like what the new movie is? He goes back to Smith's Grove, the sanitarium where he escaped from.
Well, I think what's gotta happen, what's gotta be the result is that they found him unfit to stand trial, or they found him not guilty by reason of insanity, which in 1978 was a little easier to do than you have now. Okay. And how this works, and prior to 1984, you could really drag out these things and get lots of different experts in there. And in 1984, they put some hard time limits on the analysis and the psychoanalysis to determine if someone was mentally competent. Okay. So before, you could drag it out, you could have multiple experts, and you could really try and make the case that he was insane. If you got some experts like Dr. Loomis, you'd obviously want to attack Dr. Loomis as not reliable to make these decisions. So you get like the pencil neckest, hippiest psychologist you can to interview Michael and take a sympathetic approach. So yeah, the state can't incarcerate him if he's incapable of deciding to murder someone. And incapable of knowing that his actions will cause death. And I think that'd be the big argument.
And also, I assume he's not as much of a threat due to all the injuries he has. Because remember, this is normal, just regular strongman Michael Myers, but not immortal, I have a druid curse Michael Myers. I can do karate with Busta Rhymes Michael Myers. This is normal Michael Myers.
When Busta Rhymes tornado kicks him, oh my God. I cheered audibly in the theater.
That's the first Halloween I saw in theaters. I mean, my favorite part of that movie is at the ending, it wasn't supposed to be Busta Rhymes. It was supposed to be the girl's, like, love interest that she was texting showing up. And if you look at that scene, when Busta Rhymes kicks down the door, for like a frame, you see the original white guy, and then the next shot, it's Busta Rhymes.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that.
So they reshot the whole ending because they're like, fuck it, let's bring Busta Rhymes back to do more karate. So Michael, if he's found innocent, you think it's like the new movie, he goes back to prison. But even if he's found guilty, would he just, if it went to trial and he was found guilty, would he still go back to the insane asylum, or would they put him in regular?
If he was found guilty, that would mean he was competent to stand trial and that he was not guilty by reason of insanity. So they would rule him sane and he would go into the general prison population. Gotcha. So he only goes to the asylum if he's not guilty by reason of insanity, or
Okay.
just simply not competent to stand trial and just needs to be commissioned for the safety of those around. And if that happens, it's absolutely plausible he could be there for however many years have passed.
Yeah.
The other thing, if he was found guilty and they tried to, you brought up the death penalty. I don't know if you brought it up on the show or if we talked about it.
Just to reiterate, a year before this movie takes place in Illinois, they reinstated the death penalty, which had the death penalty in Illinois has gone back and forth. It's no longer there as of 2011, I believe. But at this time, the death penalty is still an option.
Sure. And I would say they would have a hard time. They would push for the death penalty. They may get an award of the death penalty, but then as Michael's attorney, you'd spend the rest of your years trying to argue that he is not mentally competent to be killed.
Okay.
We don't execute mentally incompetent people. And I say we don't in air quotes because it happens, but that it's not supposed to.
Does it still currently happen? I guarantee you it happened in the past. 100%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the person doesn't raise a convincing defense to their execution, by saying that they're not competent to be, I guess if you're mentally incompetent, you can't be executed. It's a weird. All of the law around execution is really weird. I've been looking into a case where they tried to lethal injection a guy and they kept poking him in the arm, but they couldn't get the vein. So for 2 hours they poked this guy, and then they just are like, well, screw it. So then he appeals and says, no, they tried to kill me and failed, and they can't do it again because that'd be double jeopardy. And the state says, yeah, but they didn't put the drugs in you though. And if they didn't put the drugs in you, they get to try again. And that's based on a previous case where someone was strapped into an electric chair and like the power went out. So the electric current didn't run through them. So they got to be killed again.
Okay.
But yeah, there's weird death penalty stuff.
Anyway, I guess that kind of wraps it up. This has been fascinating. This is actually we should do this again with just other characters.
I'd love it. I love watching horror movies, there's a bunch of them I haven't watched since being a lawyer, so that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be fun to go back and I'm trying to think of this is a realistic one we could do.
Sure.
Jason, it would be really hard to do a Jason one because his backstory is all over the place. But the first film with his mother would be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should definitely, whenever the new movie's on DVD, we should return and see how his new crimes might have affected any of these original decisions.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. It'll also be interesting to see how faithful they are to the lore of the first movie. Yeah. And if they try and shoehorn some stuff in or
there is a reference to almost all the sequels in the movie, but it doesn't acknowledge any of them. If you watch the trailer, it shows trick-or-treaters wearing the masks from Halloween 3.
Oh.
Do with Michael Myers.
Halloween 3 is one of the worst. Gosh, that's a bad movie.
What? Compared to all the other sequels, it at least tried something. It's not a good movie, but it is a fun movie to watch.
Yeah. And the whole masks are going to melt the faces of all the children, but we only made 3 types, y'all. Yeah. So just
we talked about it on Cinemassacre, how that plan didn't make sense to send a commercial that'll activate the mask, because it's what about time zones? There's got to be someone who didn't watch the commercial but figured it out and called ahead of time.
Yeah, get the mask off your kid. My kid's face just melted.
Yeah, everyone has that mask. That's weird. Thanks, Nick, for coming on and explaining all this to us. We can follow you at Rekieta Law on YouTube, right?
Yeah, youtube.com/Rekieta Law, or you could Google the Maddox lawsuit or whatever, and you could find me there. But yeah.
All right, awesome. Hopefully we'll do this again, and thanks for coming on. That is all.
Absolutely, anytime, man.